Let me introduce our guests today. They are two key figures in the development of BYUtv Sports, going back way before there was a BYUtv. Michael Miners, the former senior coordinating producer, and Russ Merrill is the former supervising director. But both are so much more, and they made great decisions by hiring Blaine and myself over 3 decades ago and then kept hiring us, which we appreciated. Now you guys are both retired from this game and on to other things. David Phillips is going to join us in a little bit, a guy who's currently sitting where the two of you sat for so long. First of all, welcome to the Wise Guys. Blaine will be back in a sec. Good to have you here. Thanks. I heard the rumble of your engine coming in.
Yeah, it's Camaro.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Well, that's right. Black Camaro sitting out there in the driveway.
Yeah, we got some fast cars on our secret location here in Provo. DJ was going to turn your mics on and we'll get fired up.
But Michael brought in what's the coolest? Because Michael's had some cool cars, right? What's the coolest car you've ever owned?
This is the coolest car.
This Camaro that you got?
Fastest?
Oh yeah.
What about other?
I made the mistake of renting one when we were on a road trip to Southern California.
Yeah.
And we were down there for a fan fest. I think at where was it?
Down in San Diego, wasn't it?
Probably.
Something like that.
We had to drive from LA to San Diego.
I got a Camaro, and I said I got to have one.
Okay, you got to have one, yeah.
So we went looking for cars, and I just said I'm going to buy a really inexpensive, like whatever, a Volkswagen Passat. Dave's always like get you know, and we go in there.
Get the Beamer.
And I keep saying to my friend Colby Sanders, who is the sales manager for all the Brent Brown dealerships. I was like, but what's that right there? Like there's a blacked out SUV, and he says, oh, that's the new Explorer ST. It's supercharged twin turbo, 400 plus horse. He goes, that's the one we sell to the state police.
Nice.
I was like, oh, yeah. I go, oh, and
take
then
two of those.
He goes,
definitely.
Let's open up the doors here, take this out of the showroom, go drive this. And I'm like, no, I'm looking for like a really chill sedan. He pulls the thing out. I go to pull on the highway, and I go, the turbo kicks on. I'm like, and I'm like, I have to have this car. I was not shopping for a big, powerful SUV, and now I'm driving a big, powerful, all blacked out SUV. But what I like is when I'm coming up behind people, they think I'm a cop, so they pull over.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, sometimes I make Brenda hang her head out the window and like do a siren sound. And that really works.
See you on the road.
That really works.
So we have been in this setting of the four of us together for like 1,000 meals.
How many miles have we
I don't know
put
how
on
many
over the
states.
years? How many hours on the air?
So we just said that the quarterbacks playing in the spring game have done 24 miles worth of throws. We've done hundreds of thousands of miles, maybe 1 million miles together covering sports in the last 30 years.
Yeah, I mean, you were talking about, I think, in the tees about Ty Detmer winning the Heisman Trophy, and I remember that trip. We were in Hawaii, and we came back on the way to a road trip for basketball. I think it was LaSalle in Philadelphia. So we literally traveled
from Hawaii to Philadelphia.
From Hawaii back to Philadelphia.
That was quite the trip.
Talk about jet lag.
Here's what I remember from our trips, and then I got some questions for you. So I'd fly in typically from wherever, and so let's say it's Colorado Springs. Let's say it's an Air Force game, and then you guys would pick me up in some kind of big car.
Oh yeah,
not the little tomato cans they like us to use now. And then I get in the back, and there'd be some form of adult rock that I'd never heard of before, and I actually like classic rock, but this was next level stuff. The bass would be pounding. It was loud enough where I really couldn't hear anything. I probably had a headache from the flight, and we were going to the Black Eyed Pea to eat for some reason, and it just seemed to happen over. It was a reoccurring experience over and over and over.
Well, you didn't like restaurants,
and I still haven't heard that music since. I don't even know where you found it, but I just remember I was getting in the back with two classic rockers.
Well, and then there would always be like we would be in the car, and these guys would say, "Oh, by the way." We'll do a production meeting, but tonight we're going to this. So tonight we're going to the Van Halen concert. We got tickets into Blaisdell. Remember the old Blaisdell? Yep. We got tickets to Van Halen tonight. So we're going to this concert. We're going to that, and that was life on the road with you guys. So
in the '80s when the music was good, BYU's broadcasting was really just getting started, and both of you were involved. And so here we sit in 2023. How did we get here? What happened in the '80s that allowed us to be a global outlet here in 2023?
That goes back to the blue and white, right?
Yeah, there was an opportunity because BYU has a global audience, and that's a unique thing for BYU. There was a need, because at that time, if you lived outside of Utah and you wanted to watch BYU, you went to a stake center in the cultural hall, and you hoped that whoever was assigned to that building was able to pull in the C-band satellite.
The Cougar Club Satellite Network, right?
That's right.
Is that what it was called?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And I still have people today talking about the glory years of when they did that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But the problem was it was cold. It was uncomfortable. A lot of times they weren't able to pull in that C-band satellite.
Yeah.
So you had really bad reception. And so at some point, the people at KBYU-TV said, and it was Tom Griffiths.
Mel Rogers.
And Mel Rogers.
Right.
Said, there's an opportunity for us to put together something that really doesn't exist anywhere in the country, an unwired, as we call unwired or syndication sports network. And we'd like you guys to run it. And I remember I was on a golf course in Washington State on vacation, and I got a call from Mel Rogers, and he said, "How soon can you get back here? Yeah. We're going to put together this college sports network, and we need you to run it." So, talk about drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah.
I had no idea what I was doing. I'd been producing sports with you guys for 4 or 5 years maybe, and now we're going to run a national sports network. And like I said,
and remember who you brought on to help run that network? Remember who you brought on?
Who?
Holly Rowe.
Holly Rowe.
That's
Remember
right.
Holly Rowe?
Everybody knows Holly Rowe.
Yeah.
She was my gal Friday.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
I remember
we saw her
going
beginning.
down. So we had to call, just to catch up on what we had to do. We had to literally cold call. I had to literally cold call stations all around the country and say, "Hey, do you want to run some BYU football games?" And a lot of them at that point were going, "Yeah, we need programming. Why not?" And it was on a barter basis, so they got half the spot inventory,
Right.
and we kept the other half of the spot inventory, and that meant when we had to go out and sell. But what that meant is after we ended up with 35 stations around the country
For the Blue and White Network, right?
Blue and White Network.
And we also did Air Force games because the networks would sometimes take BYU games, and you had to give the affiliates a number of games, right?
That's right. Yeah, they
And Air Force was blue and white, so it fit in.
That's
so
why we called it.
We're like, it's called blue and white because we'll be the primary outlet for Air Force. We would all trade, and like sometimes you would be over doing an Air Force game, I would be here doing a BYU game, and vice versa. And we work with Tom Kirkland and Craig Bolerjack and Holly Rowe and Charlene Wells at the time, soon to be Charlene Hawks, our former Miss America and ESPN host. She and Chris Fowler originated Scholastic Sports America back in the old days. So we had a lot of fun, talented people that
Craig
came
Bolerjack,
through.
didn't we bring Craig Bolerjack on?
Yeah, we
at the
brought
time?
Craig on.
Yeah, Craig was
part
on
of it.
and that was part of the process. Is at the time KSL
Was
Was
part
a
of the
flagship.
Blue and White.
Right.
was the flagship
they were
station.
flagship.
Well, they weren't even the flagship; they were the rights holder for BYU football and basketball. And the headache for us became we had to do a separate, what we call split broadcast. So we had 2 booths for every home football game, where we had an announced team that was calling in one booth that was going out to the national audience, and then KSL was broadcasting to the Utah audience. And at some point we said, this is too much of a headache, because we're literally in the truck having to babysit 2 broadcasts at the same time. So we went up to KSL and said, this is ridiculous. Why don't you guys just become the flagship of the Blue and White Sports Network? And that's how we were able to.
Yeah, that's when we started to cross over and work with Craig and work with Tom and those guys. You guys were also pioneers in live streaming, but you were talking about it way before anyone even knew.
I remember you saying
what
it's
it
all
was.
going live stream, and I didn't even know what live stream was. I'm like, what are you talking about?
And now it's just like a way of life.
Yeah.
Like, hey, look at the Pac-12 is talking about their primary rights holder being a streaming service. Yeah. So where did that idea even, and how did you even know that that's where it was going? Because there's a component of live streaming and everything. Even BYUtv now, even though it's on almost every cable system in the United 65 million homes, it's also available live streaming anywhere in the world. And we get emails from...
And right here on our phones. It allows us to watch,
you can watch
the baseball game.
What was the brainchild behind that? How did you even think of that idea?
I think a lot of it was us keeping our finger on the pulse of what was happening technology-wise and industry-wise. I mean, we were very involved in industry meetings, industry conferences, those type of things. So, as you're trying to look at what's coming down the pike, and Russ and I would both do this, we'd really look at what's the next technology that's coming down the road. And it came pretty evident that what's called over-the-top or linear broadcasting to traditional networks and channels around the country was going to be overrun eventually by streaming. And you know how it is right now. I don't watch traditional television very much at all. The only thing I watch it for is live sports.
Yeah.
Everything else I'm going to watch on a streaming service.
Right.
Well, and we had the tools, we had the facilities, we had the ability to put all that together. Now, how many universities that are out there have the facilities that we have here? I mean,
None.
even ESPN, when they come in to do a game with us, they're saying, hey, do you guys have a room for another person here? This is great.
Yeah.
You've got some of the best facilities and cameras. And
At the time, the
videotape.
truck that we were working out of, and it upgraded to another truck, was the most state-of-the-art production truck in the Western United States.
Always
and that included
was.
any network.
That opened up so many
Always
doors
ABC,
for us.
CBS, NBC, and I would always say, and because this thing kind of ran its course when BYU went in, and we all kind of went other places. Michael, you went to ESPN, and you were over in Hawaii teaching.
Surfing.
Dave surfing mostly.
Laying on the beach.
Dave was down at KLAS, and he was the voice of the Rebels, and he and I were doing the UNLV package together once in a while. I'd gone down to I was at the Mountain Network, and then with Versus and with NBC covering the Mountain West Conference. We'd all gone to our different things, and then BYU says, hey, we're going independent. We need to get the band back together.
Yeah.
Right. And
There you go.
and then they talked to Dave and I, and they talked to you guys, and I think we all said the same thing. Dave and I were like, if Michael and Russ aren't going to be back here, we're not interested in
We
this.
have to get the best guys back.
We were used to a production quality that was network quality, and where we had been, it's like, we're not coming back to take a big, huge step down from a production perspective. Are you guys going to get Russ and Mike? And they're like, Michael, and they're like, yeah, they're coming too. And guess what? They said you need to go get Blaine and Dave.
That's right.
And so we all came
And credit
back
Derek
together.
Marquis for
2011.
being willing to get everyone back, and he had to get
2011.
you from ESPN. He had to go to Hawaii and convince
he had to come to
you,
Hawaii and get me.
and he came to Vegas to get me, and he got with you.
I still had the contract left on my NBC contract, and he's like, well, can't we work that out? I'm like, I think I can get it. So I got NBC to rewrite my contract so that I could do BYU TV games, and I had a dual contract going during that time, and everybody was really understanding, so we were able to do it. And you left ESPN. You were the last job you had at ESPN. Were you not the coordinating producer of Primetime Sports Center? Is that what you were doing?
All right, before we talk about any more BYU stuff, to the person who thinks that being a sports producer at ESPN would be the ultimate experience in human existence, what was that like?
It was a huge grind. I mean, you're there 12 hours a day, usually 7 days a week.
So the funness left a lot early,
No, I mean,
or did it stick around?
when I first got there was a honeymoon period, and
Yeah.
it was way cool. You're dealing with all of the top sports personalities that you see. Scott Van Pelt, all of them.
Yeah, because Primetime was it's Scotty Van Pelt, and it was
Dan Patrick,
Dan
Oberman.
Patrick, I worked with
and
for a
even, and
while.
even Chris Berman at that time.
Chris Berman,
Yeah.
Bob Lee.
Yeah.
Bob Lee was my anchor on the Sports Center that I oversaw for a long time. It was the Sunday morning Sports Center. It had the highest rating of any Sports Center because you're leading into NFL Countdown.
Right.
But it was way cool. But after 2 or 3 years, you realize you're working with the same people in the same room every
Eating the
day,
same food.
doing the same thing.
Yeah.
The celebrity aspect of it starts to wear off a little bit, and you just realize, I'm working my tail off here. It's very cool, but it's very insulated. I really missed being out and being connected to the live events like we used to do with the Blue and White Network and eventually Sports West. So it was, I'll never forget. I walked into the newsroom one day at ESPN, and there's Derek Marquis standing there, and he's on a tour. And I go, "What in the world are you doing here?" Because we, had we're very familiar from back in the KBYU days, and he was a salesman. And he said, "We're here putting together a network at BYU TV, and we're looking how ESPN does it." And we went out to dinner that night, and he goes, "What would it take to get you to come back to BYU TV?" And at that point, I said, "I don't know that you can afford me."
Yeah.
For one
That was
thing.
the same thing I said.
Yeah, and
Yeah, that's what Dave and I said too, and then we all settled.
We all did
We all settled.
Because to be back together And to know that even though maybe you take a cut and pay from ESPN or NBC or KLAS or over with the teaching and all that, even though it might have been a little less money, the vision that we all had for what it could be and to be able to work together and build something from scratch was really intriguing for all of us, I think. Right?
That's what we wanted to do. We actually ended up doing what we wanted to do. How many people can say that?
And look what we've done. And there's been a giant support cast, and there's so many other people involved, and we don't want to. It's not just the big four here, but look what we've done since you got back, and since you came back, since we came back. We got through independence in a crazy deal with ESPN where we got our 1 or 2 games a year, but then we started pregame shows, and we started
in football, but we got
after further review.
In basketball, we had a good stable
post-game shows, a lot of basketball games. Now they do coaches shows and just about everything. But you think about when we came back and when Derek was saying, here's what we want to do, there was just a sports magazine show left, which was True Blue, I think it was still called, which I'd done years ago. And now here in 2023, where BYU is going to the Big 12, just what BYU Broadcasting has done for the sports fan, which is the driver of all programming, as I look at it, it's been a remarkable thing, hasn't it?
It's unprecedented. It really is. And you know, we have to go back and mention the fact that, you know, all of us coming from where we had graduated to UNBC, UKLAS, you over in Hawaii with the resources they had there, but, you know, me coming from ESPN where you're at the pinnacle, and you can't go any farther than ESPN. And so I was used to dealing with resources and facilities that were unparalleled. And so that was one of the things I kind of drug my feet about coming back to BYU TV. But when I saw that new building and the facilities that they created there, I said, this is exactly what we had at ESPN. So their trips out there to replicate what ESPN had was fruitful. I mean, it was all the production control rooms, the truck that they had at the time, it just blew my mind. And I think you too.
Hats off to our administration for having that happen.
And I have to say,
it's amazing.
They've stayed ahead of the curve with all the technology because you guys have demanded it. But so I remember when I started to host the Atlantic 10 tournament show, and NBC Sports built a brand new studio. We used to work out of Rockefeller Center, and then they moved it to Connect, and they said, this is the finest sports production facility in the world now, right? So I go back there the first year that it's open, and some of the guys said, how does this compare to what you've done before? And I remember saying, this is the best, other than BYU TVs are this, and they're not quite as big, like we don't have 10 studios, but we've got 3 major. But I said, but in terms of what they can do, BYU TVs is as good as this. And theirs was brand new. I don't know how many millions, if not $1 billion, they spent to build that thing. And BYU's facility, because of what you guys demanded and what BYU was and others were willing to put into this, it was state of the art. We could do a way better game than ESPN2 or you or.
What we use 23 cameras for our football game
at least
in November. 23 cameras.
Yeah. Whatever we want.
For both shows.
Yeah.
I mean, for us to be able to schematic a show that was, I mean, ESPN would come in here and do shows with us on a side-by-side when we first started.
Share cameras,
Yeah, and they were just, every single producer that came in from ESPN was just blown away with what we had, and then it became, hey, can we share?
Yeah. Can we just use your stuff?
Okay.
So
we'll leave some guys back east.
All these shows that you talk about, so Sports Nation, which is a daily show, was Michael's brainchild, and after further review, and like Russ just retired, he's been producing and putting everything together for after further. We were hoping
I'm still coming to terms with that.
Yeah, we're still trying to figure out how we can bring him back on to do that show with us, a weekly show that we do every, like, it's just been all of these things that we've wanted to do in terms of studio shows. The university's been willing to support at the level that makes it network quality, which has been really fun.
And the development of the app, which allows us to stream, going back to streaming, everything we do. Which now we are going, and we'll talk to David Phillips about it in a few minutes, but we're now going to the Big 12, where everything BYUtv Sports has done live game-wise, with the exception of men's volleyball, is going to go to Big 12 now and streamed. So you're right, everything is going streaming, and you talked about it a long time ago, and BYUtv was prepared for it long before any of the affiliates in the state of Utah, I can tell you that much. and that's to the credit of you guys and to those who backed you and the administrators and all that stuff. But what was the crown jewel moment? Think about from where we are from where you guys started, and you started in the late 70s at BYU. Prior to BYU beating Texas A&M on KBYU, which was the first live game ever on Channel 11, now BYU TV. What was the crown jewel moment?
Oh, there's so many that I can think of. But give me 20 cameras, give me 10 slow-mo machines, give me a graphics department, give me an audio department, give me a couple of good talent announcers.
We're still looking for those.
We're still looking for those.
They tried.
And we'll bring you a game from anywhere at any time.
So you're saying your greatest moment was our last moment?
It could have been. It could have been. There's so many great moments over the years. The thing that I always had a goal to do as a director was to walk away from a broadcast with a good feeling of knowing that we had done our best job, no matter what it was on the air. We had to be invisible, essentially, to the audience, because we wanted people talking about the athletes and the performers, not about, oh man, those guys, they missed a shot, they missed a play. And so that was always important to us. We'd spend some time over in Denver, and building relationships with our crews was really important to us for some golden moments. And the Denver crews were always telling us, hey, you know what, if we had a choice to work with either the Nuggets or with you guys, we'd rather work with you guys.
Wow.
And the only network that tried to get up to the size that we were was the Longhorn Network, but frankly, Longhorn Network's not close to what
they were the struggle. They were an ESPN entity
and pay-per-view.
Yeah, and I remember a lot of people that I worked with at ESPN going and migrating to that network, and then interacting with those people as they got settled there, and they were up in arms about how they weren't getting supported by the University of Texas, and eventually even the mothership ESPN was kind of treating them like a lost stepchild. So we were really fortunate with BYU TV. But you asked about the crown moment.
What was yours?
I think what Russ said is absolutely valid. There's a saying in sports broadcasting, well, in broadcasting in general, you're only as good as your last show. And one of the things I'm really proud of is the fact that we were trusted by outside entities like the WCC,
right?
And you guys just got through with that.
We just finished calling WCC tournament, which you negotiated way back at the beginning, the year before BYU came in the WCC. We did that tournament. Yeah,
and not only the live games from that tournament, but we did 25 live shows. We did BYU Sports Nation there on site. We did all of those shows live, and I think to accomplish that, not only 1 year, but 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 6, 7 years running, and have a conference like the WCC trust us to come in and manage that, and take over not only BYU games, but games that had nothing to do with BYU.
Yeah.
I heard you, I think, in this last tournament talking about when we first got there and just walking around in the hotel and people giving us dirty looks.
Yeah, the Gonzaga fans.
We were BYU.
Who are you guys?
The Zags learned to love us.
We got there a year before BYU got there, right? Because we went down there as a gift, so we'll do your tournament. So they actually had no idea who we were unless... Right. And then we walked in. Then they were treating us like kings our last year.
Yeah. Eventually, they loved us.
Great partnership. Yeah. And we're hopeful that something like that can work out with the Big 12 at some point. As things move on, we can talk to Junior about it. I'm interested. Like, we all have crazy fun memories. Do both of you have a favorite event that we did that just stands out in your mind? We're like, oh my gosh, that was so fun, or that was so awesome during all those years. That's a lot to ask. Maybe one or two even. Because over 30 plus years, we've been involved in some crazy, amazing moments. What's yours, Michael? Do you have one?
Well, I think you touched on it earlier. For CBS Sports to trust us with the live broadcast of the Heisman Trophy winner, and then to have that be Ty Detmer over in Hawaii, and have us be really responsible for that whole feed. That was certainly a feather in my cap, in our cap. That was obviously something that I, highlighted in my resume. Yeah. But I think it's cumulative. Again, it's for us to do what we've done for 35, 40 years and have the support and have the infrastructure. And then, I think the crown jewel for me really is getting the students up to speed to do network quality broadcasts. Because when I first got here from ESPN, that was a struggle. I remember the first thing that I did when I got here was the first Independence Media Day. And we structured it and had it all ready to go. And then I'm standing in the control room. I think this was before you even got here. And I'm standing in the control room, and I'm used to this speed at ESPN. And everybody there is an all-star at their position. I mean, you're dealing with all-stars at their position. So when I first got to that first media day, and I'm looking around in the control room, and I'm seeing deer in the headlights. Look from,
what are we doing?
Yeah, from the students. And that was really come to religion moment for those students, because I remember sitting down with them afterwards and going, look, Derek Marquis and the administration, including Kevin Worthen, who was vice president at the time, has given me the mandate to put my foot on the gas and don't take it off. And so that's what we're going to do. And if you're willing to come along for that ride and buckle up for that ride, and it's going to be a lot faster than you're used to it being, let's go. But if you're not ready for that, it's probably time to climb off. And some of it took
a lot of stress.
And to that point, so BYU's broadcasting program, because of this, especially sports broadcasting, I mean, when people think of great schools, they think of Syracuse, right? Which gives people great experience, and they have a lot of air on air. Outside of Syracuse, I'm convinced there's no place in the country that can provide their students with the experience that they get, because we're asking them to be pros while they're still amateurs.
Absolutely.
And then they get to go be a pro, but on their resume and on their tape, they literally can say, yeah, I've been in school, so technically I'm an amateur, but like I have a pro portfolio. Like I'm a professional at this. I've been doing this. And I think BYU we have so many people, and we could make a list of folks that have gone on, and not just on air talent, but all the behind the scenes roles all over the country at multiple networks that have come through this program.
Let's bring in one of our guys, Michael Miner and Russ Merrill, former BYUtv. We'll call you pioneers, even though you're too young for that. But these are two of the most influential people that have ever worked in the development of BYUtv Sports, bar none. They're with us, and David Phillips is now in charge of BYUtv Sports in our brand new building, and joins us. Is that a Giants hat? Is that what even though it's red, or what is that?
Yeah, it was the Father's Day edition last year, or sorry, it was the 4th of July, and so it has the USA flag in there.
Oh, nice.
Oh, nice.
It was unique and different, so I thought,
what shirt do you have on?
Let's do a whole wardrobe.
So
he's ready for opening day.
David, I didn't know that you were a fashion icon, but I'm glad to see this.
He's Junior, and everyone calls him Junior because there's a lot of Davids in his life. But
yes.
How valuable were these two guys we're talking with today, Michael and Russ, and what you have now inherited and building on?
BYU fans would not have what we have without these two. It's unbelievable what they were able to accomplish coming in there. Michael came in with a completely blank slate. I think at the time in the Mountain West, correct me if I'm wrong, there were maybe 2 to 3 games a year that would be broadcast. And now we're up to about 135 a year. And so Michael brought Russ and both of them with an unbelievable wealth of experience and knowledge, and extremely talented in the business, knew how to do it, and were able to take basically people with zero experience in this industry and build them up to some of the most talented producers, directors that we have in the business. I can say everyone who sees, games on BYUtv, we have a lot of people that'll reach out and say, hey, I love it when BYUtv does a game, because they do it right and they put a lot of effort into it. And a lot of that goes back to Michael and Russ, and for what they did of laying the foundation and teaching people how to do the job, how to do it right.
And we made it fun too.
Without these two, BYUtv wouldn't be the best that it is.
Hey, Dave, when you mentioned that, and I'm looking at Russ and Michael, we were talking about kind of seminal moments, and Michael just mentioned the Heisman Trophy ceremony. What you just said made me think of a whole game moment. We did the Baylor-BYU basketball game in the Marriott Center on BYUtv.
On a Saturday morning at 11 o'clock.
And Baylor, as they always are, was a highly ranked top 10 program. And BYU at that time was also really good and ranked. And people down in and Texas and Waco, I think we're thinking, oh, brother, BYU TV, this is how we get to watch this? Oh, we're so used to the Longhorn Network and the unbelievable bias, poor coverage.
It's going to be two halves of Mormon doctrine.
I'm not saying that Texas is, but this is what they were saying. It's like, this is going to be terrible. The number of emails and texts and that came from that fan base back after that game saying, my goodness, and then out on the, like, Texas Longhorn Network needs to learn something. This game was like network quality. The call was down the line, like unbalanced or balanced. But I remember all three of you emphasizing with us, because this is what we wanted to do anyhow, Dave and I on the air, that we're going to do this like a network broadcast. We don't want a homer broadcast for BYU. And some BYU fans may not love that, but we want this to be right down the middle. You pay as much attention to the other team and learn everything about them as you do about BYU. And even though this is a home game for BYU, this needs to be a network broadcasting, and it needs to be called fair. Don't you think that that's maybe because that's the reputation we get to do a WCC tournament and do teams? And does that not pave the way, especially question for you, David, for maybe getting more and more involved as the years go on with the Big 12?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Our reputation definitely precedes us. Going in there, it's fun to talk with different representatives from the Big 12 conference when they talk about and what they see. As we were starting and kind of opening the door of kind of where our role will be in the new Big 12, we invited every one of them to watch as we did the game this year against Utah Tech, and said, hey, here's an opportunity for you to see how we do it. This is a game, and it was a great broadcast. I got a lot of people reaching out telling us that, like, how fair it was, down the middle, but just a great network quality broadcast. And that's what we want. That's who we want to be, and that's who we are. So that's what's exciting.
One great visual we had, remember we did Countdown to Kickoff, and then with Jeff Simpson and his vision for it, and David Phillips this year, we went next level with Game Day, moved it out of the stadium, put the rock behind us, and then here comes the commissioner of the Big 12 for the Baylor game, sitting down with all of us, with Brian Logan, David Nixon, and the two of us, and Spencer Linton, and that visual of this league that BYU is about to join, to have the commissioner there surrounded by the awesomeness of what BYU TV does, and he just looked around and he just said, wow. I mean, what a Junior, you couldn't ask for a better moment as we're trying to convince this new commissioner that, hey, we can do some stuff.
Yeah, it was great. He walks off and he looks at us and he said, you guys do this every week? He said, yes. Yes, we do. This isn't just because it's opening, home game
and it's Baylor
against
right?
and Baylor. This is every week. You saw that same atmosphere when Utah Tech came to town. Doesn't matter who. And so they were very impressed. And he said, this is a Big 12 atmosphere and this is Big 12 production. So we're really excited about that. We're excited about where we can go with this. So yeah, it's a great opportunity.
In addition to Commissioner Yormark that was on set with us that day, we also had Baylor's president and Baylor's athletic director. And you guys sent a crew down to Baylor to do a feature story on Baylor's campus and that university. And I know the president came on and she watched that and it just blew her away. She was just like,
why would you do that?
Why are you guys doing that? And we said, well, that's what we do. Like, if you're going to be on our air, we're going to tell your whole side of it. And she goes, this is going to be good. After she said, I think Baylor and BYU can be really good partners in this league, is what she said, which I thought was great.
As long as you guys keep saying nice stuff about us, we're all in.
Yeah, I think this could be a good partnership. So what do you see happening, David, with BYU TV in the Big 12? We talk about some of these shows. We know there's not a contract in place to do their tournament like we did the WCC. But what are the possibilities as time goes on in this league?
I think that we will be involved in different championships. I think, obviously, hands down, Big 12 is the best basketball conference in the country. And so ESPN is going to gobble that whole thing up because I can't think of a bad game in that tournament. There isn't a team, there isn't a bad game, a bad team. But I think every other sport, we've proved that we are probably the best entity that does volleyball. we're very good at soccer. We're very good at some of these other sports, baseball and softball. And so I feel like we're going to get an opportunity to broadcast these tournaments for the Big 12 and to be able to, a lot of it will be showcased on ESPN or ESPN2, ESPNU, or ESPN Plus, but we'll kind of be the backbone behind that, doing the production. So I think that we've proved that we can do that that's who we are, and that we're a great, we're very good at broadcasting.
So it sounds to me we will be as busy as we've ever been. We might be in different places, but all of our side programming, like kickoff shows and AFRs, whatever, brings everyone back to BYUtv Sports. Michael?
I was just going to add to and validate what Junior is talking about, especially with volleyball. Volleyball is the one sport that's going to fall outside the contract, the TV contract, as I understand. But several years ago, when we first were doing this kind of mid my latest tenure here with BYUtv, I was invited to go out to Tulsa, Oklahoma, to meet with the NCAA, and there was a volleyball summit with all the major networks where they're represented. And we walked into the meeting, the first meeting of that conference. It was a 2-day conference, and the guy who was with the NCAA that was coordinating and hosting the meeting said, "Let's just get this out of the way right from the get-go. Nobody does college volleyball, televises college volleyball better than BYUtv. Can we all agree on that?" And all of the major networks go, "Yeah, that's right.
It's true. That's true.
It is true.
That's awesome.
It is true. Michael, what advice do you have for Junior moving forward with this thing that the two of you helped get to here, and now we get to go next level as a P5 in markets where BYUtv is already in their homes, but the people in the homes don't know what channel it is yet, and sometimes sports can help take people there. Say, hey, Kansas State is playing BYU. I can learn about BYU. We get that channel. It's channel 250, and once they go there, they now know for the rest of their life that they are there.
I can't give Junior a lot of advice because he's been with us from the beginning when I got here. Junior was one of the people in charge of our graphics department when we got here, and that was one of the things we really had to ramp up quickly, to get it network quality. In fact, that was the one thing I think I pointed at first when I got here and said, we've got to improve the graphic look and branding of this network, and Junior was instrumental in making that happen. But he's also been here long enough to realize that there is a challenge, and the new challenge is going to be interfacing with a conference, which we haven't had to do,
right?
Since the Mountain West
since
Conference.
independence, right?
Yeah, all the time that we've been doing this, and the flexibility that we had was somewhat made possible by the freedom of independence. And now you're going to be structured in a conference, and they're going to be joined at the hip with BYUtv. I think the added value you still bring to the table is your shoulder programming. The BYU Sports Nation, everything that
after review,
further review,
BYU Sports Nation, the coaches shows, the alumni games, the even the post game show,
pre-game, post-game. Nobody's doing that.
Yeah. Right.
No other college network around the country is doing a national pre-game show, a national post-game show, where you're able to hear the coaches and players directly live right after the game. And I think that's the value, and Junior knows that. He knows that and can plug right in.
I thought you were going to say, Junior, just make sure you keep Dave and Blaine gainfully employed. It was a setup for that, and didn't even come up. Didn't even come up.
Hey, one thing that Commissioner Yormark said, which I don't think is going to happen right away, but Junior, maybe down the road. After we did that, he came on our game day 2-hour special, and we were talking. He's like, "Man, this is as good as College Game Day on ESPN. Not as big a crowd, but he's like the production quality." He goes, "I can't believe you have this set and all this. Is this something you could do? Could you do a Big 12 game day? Are you guys capable of that?" And I said, "Well, I'm not the production guy, but let me just tell you this: yes, we absolutely could do a Big 12 game day if that's something you guys were interested in." He goes, interesting. So I know we don't have a place to do that, but Yormark was thinking about that when he saw the level of what we were doing.
And that's one of the things we're working up towards, and doing this is saying, look at what we can do, and we have the ability and the technology to be able to do this for the entire conference, and make it kind of unique and something special for them. So we've approached them about that, and we're kind of looking at plans and different things that we can do. But yeah, it's great. And really, honestly, I mean, those two guys, Michael and Russ, the only reason we're at where we are is because of them. I mean, you can't immediately start running. And so they took it from ground zero and brought it up to where we did have the only pre and post game show. And that's why we're able to continue to grow and to earn that trust, to start from zero where, the athletic department and stuff, like, oh, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that they saw us as well as a college station, but Michael and Russ bringing that legitimacy, bringing that experience to grow and to earn that trust to where we can continually build on that year after year and say, oh, hey, look what we can do. And all of that is because of the foundation that these two set, to be able to do that. They had to take it. They had to do the hard work. I just get to, that train's already moving. I just have to keep it moving in the right direction. The hardest part is getting it from stopped to moving and to going in that motion. And so these guys have been great in kind of getting us there.
It's interesting because people, Dave and I are lucky. We get to be one of the, a couple of the faces. And so everybody thinks we are BYU TV because we're the ones they see on the air.
And have seen us forever.
Yeah, and for 30-something years. But we're just the tip of what happens, right? We're the very tip of the spear. It's the visible tip of the spear. And we just show up and call games, right? And do shows. Now, we do have to do our homework and all that. Our job is the easy job. What you three, what Michael and Russ have done over the years, and Junior, what you coordinate with the hundreds of people that get involved on a weekly basis to put these shows on the air, and dozens that work, and we're doing all these live productions all at one time. It takes all of that. It's not Dave and I just talking. We're the lucky ones that are the beneficiary of everything that goes on behind the scenes. So
yeah, it's a great,
we're grateful
a cool
to you
gig.
guys. So.
All right, current boss, we'll cut you free, and then we'll finish up with our former bosses. We'll see you in the shop.
See you, Junior.
David Phillips,
thank you very much.
Head of BYUtv Sports, with a big future ahead. Of course, we're in the middle of baseball and volleyball and softball. You're not anymore because you just barely retired.
Right. Yep.
You're in the middle of afternoon naps and all that stuff.
About the future. I think the future's bright.
Future is bright, and you're back in rock and roll up at USANA running things, which I think is awesome. I'll always remember you guys picking me up after a Good Morning. I was a reporter at Good Morning America, and we were in New Jersey, and it was 78 degrees, and I flew to Colorado Springs, and you picked me up, and then yes, the music was loud, and then the Black Eyed Pea was probably involved. We also went to a Walmart and got some Long Johns because a winter storm had moved in. BYU's playing Air Force. I'm the sideline reporter back then before I moved up in the booth. Blaine and I think Jay Monson were up in the booth. You guys are in the truck. I'm down there. Coldest day of my life. My face is frozen. My brain is warm, but everything else is frozen. And Blaine and those guys threw down for a sideline hit, and my mouth wouldn't move. And all I could hear are three of my good friends is laughing and laughing and laughing. As I think I was sitting on a snowbank, and I'm thinking, yeah, I'm living the dream. I'm living the dream down here. But I knew you three were somewhere warm, living the dream in the truck and in the booth. But that's just like one of 5 million memories that we've enjoyed together. And David said it best. And so we brought you guys in to talk memories and stuff, but also to say thanks and give you some props. And everybody in Cougar Nation gets a chance to see what you look like and hear your voices and stuff. When for all those years, it's been something where you've been behind the scenes making it happen. Yeah. And that's cool. So let's do 5 questions with these guys before we wrap up.
Interesting. So we do this with all of our guests because I feel like it gives fans a chance to know you a little bit better. With these specific questions, I'm really anxious for a couple of these ones.
I'm nervous.
So, and you're just supposed to, the first thing that pops into your head, that's what you're supposed to do. That's what the purpose
how we
of this
roll.
is, right? We don't want you to think through it about what the correct answer is. We want you to just give your gut.
We want honest.
So here we go.
Honesty.
Here we go. And we'll go Michael first and then Russ, and then on the next question we'll go Russ and then Michael. So favorite sports movie, Michael?
Moneyball.
Moneyball. I just watched that the other night.
It's classic.
Russ, favorite sports movie?
I can't believe he didn't take the Red Sox job.
Yeah, I know. That was a lot more money.
What do you got, Russ?
I can't think of one right now.
What? You already had bonus time to even think of a sports movie that you like.
Yeah, I can't think of one.
Not Rudy, not Remember the Titans, not
Hoosiers, not Rocky.
Not Rocky.
They're all good. I don't have a favorite.
We'll have to swing.
Here's the thing.
We'll circle back.
Russ is like
to
a
Russ.
parent. Like when we always like, are we your favorite broadcasters? He's always like, well, I love everybody the same.
Yeah.
You can't leave one of them out, right?
All right. Well, then let's just go right to
We'll go to favorite
singer or band.
Van Halen.
Van Halen.
Yeah, well, we did that concert
saw the
in Blaisdell.
That was awesome.
Yeah, I love Van Halen. I'm with you. I could listen to them anytime.
I have a feeling I know what this is, but what are you going with?
Dave Grohl.
Oh yeah.
Foo Fighters.
Foo Fighters.
Favorite band, favorite singer.
I'm trying to remember, Michael, when grunge rock was just like the Seattle music scene. Weren't you on the top of that back in those days?
Oh yeah, I love music.
Nirvana
That's where I came from.
and like all those Seattle bands were coming. I remember Michael introducing me
Michael's
to
still
all
a
of those.
drummer in his band. The
That's
band's
right.
still
Two
going?
bands.
Two
So
bands.
and if we mention what Michael, like Russ just retired. Michael made a move a few years ago. And should we tell people what Michael's doing now? Because it's a pretty cool gig he's got right now.
We just talked about it. We were talking about up at
when I ran down
USANA with
to
the
grab
rock
something.
bands.
Yeah, okay, never
He's in
mind.
charge of band security. When a band comes to USANA, they deal with Michael.
And Michael's music's been a huge
When
part
we
of
go to
Michael's
USANA, we
life,
should be able to go
right?
to the front row because of Michael, but we haven't quite worked that out.
Yeah, we haven't worked that part out.
We'll
But
talk about it.
okay, okay. So now this first one's for Mike. Yeah, sorry, I had to run down and grab something. But your favorite breakfast cereal?
I just had them this morning. Lucky Charms.
Lucky Charms.
Yes.
We're
So
back.
here's the other question. When anybody says Lucky Charms, because that's one of my childhood favorites, do you eat them in phases? Do you eat all the crunchy things first and leave like 3 bites of nothing but the marshmallow charms at the end? Or
Who
do you
doesn't?
See, that's what I'm talking about.
See, the
right
show's
there.
back. We got off track
That's what I'm
last week.
talking about right there.
Kyle Van Noy denounced all breakfast
When he goes,
cereals.
we'd make our
Threw us
kids
way off.
green smoothies for breakfast. I'm like, okie dokie, Kyle.
All right, what do you got?
Pancakes.
That's not a cereal.
Cereal?
Russ.
Yeah, that was the
cereal.
favorite breakfast.
It's got to be Captain Crunch.
Captain Crunch.
That's
all right.
Dave's.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's Dave's Captain Crunch.
Had Fruit Loops today just to mix it up.
Sometimes
it's
you have
Tuesday.
to. Like in my cupboard right now, I have a nice bin of Apple Jacks, one of Fruit Loops, and one of Life, Cinnamon Life, because not regular Life, Cinnamon Life. And what we're missing is some Lucky Charms, so we're gonna have to get some.
You can go get the green Lucky Charms that are St. Patrick's.
That
Because
time
St.
of
Patrick's
year.
Day is like next
Turns your
week,
milk
right? So-
green.
It's that time
So-
of year.
Okay, is this Russ first now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your favorite broadcast moment? Favorite moment? Yeah, I know there's been a bunch, but there's got to be.
We were doing a game, the football stadium, and we had Jim Nantz and Steve Young on the field with the open.
Right.
And as soon as they got done with the stand-up in the open, they went to the elevator, and the elevator got stuck.
That's right.
We had Spencer Kennard in the booth.
The music and the spoken
Music
word.
and the spoken
Spencer
word
Kennard.
announcer. And so because Jim and Steve were stuck in the elevator, we had Spence start the show.
Oh, my
So if you
gosh.
could imagine,
And Spence at the time, not only that, he's like the boss of KSL TV, right?
Yeah.
He's like the news guy.
Yeah.
And
news
that's who
director,
you're
From
stuck.
the
He's an
crossroads
awesome
of the
guy.
West.
Play-by-play and color.
we bring to you
start the show.
exciting BYU football. I'll never forget that. That was
And
that
you
was
were
fun.
you were
Spence
directing that.
Kennard.
I was producing that. It was fun
producing.
to work with
Oh
KSL.
my gosh.
Awesome. What do you
Yeah,
got?
that was a
that
moment.
was a good one.
I think one of my favorites was we did a game at San Diego when Ty Detmer was playing.
Oh yes.
And what did it
52-52 tie.
52. And I remember walking out of the truck at halftime going, this is
terrible
This
game.
is a terrible game. And then BYU comes
Because
back
BYU's
in the
getting
second
killed.
half
Yeah.
and made it one of the most exciting finishes ever.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorites I've ever called too, because the second half was so crazy. But Michael might even remember this. So my wife Brenda is a huge sports fanatic, right? But she found out what it's really like to broadcast because we remember our spotter didn't show up, and Brenda said I could spot for you guys. So we're like, you sure you want to do this? She goes, yeah. What do I do? And we tell her we have these boards here. Your job is to watch every single play, point to the primary tackler and the secondary tackler on every play. And then the play-by-play guy, because he knows who's lined up. Play-by-play guy knows who's lined up, and if they throw a ball, you can easily identify. But sometimes it's not as easy to identify the tackler. So that was her role in this game as a spotter. We got to halftime, and she turned to me and said, "I hate you right now." She's like, I thought I watched football, but I don't know that I've ever watched every single play of a football game. I said, well, buckle in because we got a second half. And then that second half was nuts up and down the field. After the game, she goes, I have a migraine. I'm exhausted. We just need to go back to the hotel and go to bed and never ask me to do that again. I'm like, you volunteered to do it. She goes, I never realized how intense it is to broadcast the game. It's such a different deal. When you get to sit at home and just chill and watch a game, which I have a hard time doing. I start analyzing the game, but I remember that game, and that's a game that's in Brenda's mind forever because she's filled in the spot for us, that San Diego State game.
Can I tell a quick story that's related to that?
Yeah.
So when I first started doing this, my dad was one of the biggest sports fans, BYU sports fan. He was so proud that I was producing the games live at the stadium. So one week he comes in, and I said, Dad, you're not going to want to be in the truck. It's going to be too crazy in there. So I'm going to put you on the sideline with a headset so you can hear what's going on. And so we do the game, and I'm excited to get his input when I get down there. He comes. I said, "What do you think, Dad?" He goes, "I just have one thing to say." He goes, "All these times I've been watching the games, I wonder who the idiot was who was holding up the game for TV timeouts, and I find out it's my own son."
Great story.
Well, I met your dad many times.
You got to pay the bills.
And you'd be hard-pressed to find a dad more proud of a son than he was of you.
Unless we look at yours.
Or all of our dads.
I have to tell you.
But he was proud of how you did that.
I'll make a confession here. I love TV timeouts when I'm doing a game. Because it goes away and I'm calling the game. It's a chance to kind of regroup and see what notes we've been missing and kind of reset ourselves every time we take a TV timeout. And it seems like this time to like re-prepare or refocus and go. When I'm watching the game on TV, I hate it.
To take too long.
I hate it. I'm like, how long are these things?
3:45, and you know exactly what the time of it.
How long are these things?
Oh my gosh.
Well, but now like I'll run from the couch to the fridge to get stuff. I'm just watching the game, and I get back, and everybody always goes, "How did you know how long you could leave?" And I'm like, 34 years and 1,000+ games later, my body clock tells me exactly how long I have on a timeout.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
All right, number 5, favorite technological development at BYU TV.
Is it me?
Yeah, you're first.
Well, it was something we had to have, and we had all the research. We've talked about that. We had the best cameras, we had the best switchers, we had the best truck, we had everything. But the one thing we really needed when I got back from ESPN was a way to actually script the shows and time the shows, and so the administration allowed us to go out and get what ESPN had was an ENPS system.
Yeah.
And I think that was a huge game changer for us to be able to actually script the shows and format the shows so that not only we knew what was going on, but we could teach that to students.
Right.
And you got BYU Sports Nation as a daily show, and to have and we designed it to be student run. And if you look at how that show operates right now, it's all students. Yeah. There's a couple people that are managing it, from a full-time basis, but it was designed to be all students. And like you said earlier, for those students to be able to take that and put it on their resume reel and say, I know how to script a show, I know how to enter all the information into the software so that the rundown, and then be able to go right straight to ESPN that runs the same system. And that's awesome for us to be able to place students at ESPN, and we've done a lot of it.
Or the area news stations, or what a news director loves is somebody knows how to do stuff.
Yeah. All that stuff behind the scenes, people don't like. When we're doing a show, that script comes to us at home the night before or the morning. We can log in and edit the script for our parts. It goes back in, they finalize it. Like all of this stuff that goes on behind the scenes to bring a game that people don't have any idea about.
Yep.
All right, Russ, what's yours?
For me, it's we have 2 production control rooms just below my office in the building, and I can just walk downstairs, and I can be through fiber optics technology. I can be connected to the baseball stadium, to the football stadium, to the Marriott Center, depending on what event we have going on that day.
So the truck doesn't even have to be there.
Doesn't have to be there.
Right there.
And it's all connected to that control room, so I just walk downstairs, do the game, walk back up after.
Yeah. So when we're calling a basketball game in the Marriott Center, or a game down at we're doing game day down in the parking lot west of the stadium, or a baseball game's going on,
or a volleyball game, in the field house.
Yeah.
All you guys are up at the building.
Is hardwired.
We're at the building.
And so the producing, directing, punching, the technical directing,
cutting the show,
everything that's going on to produce that show with all of the different angles of all the cameras, and Russ is telling them which camera to take and how to do it. That's all happening up in BYU's broadcast facilities, which is phenomenal.
Amazing technology.
Yeah.
Yeah, it cuts down the commute,
Yes, it does.
Plus, then we don't have to see. You can be mad at us. By the time you get to us, you're not mad at us anymore.
Well,
it's like it was like 3 blocks away to cool off.
The things that you can do from a quality perspective with sound and graphics and all these things with a permanent, full-on control room is so much more than you could do even from the most, technologically sound truck. So that's why a lot of these things that we do that originate from home look so good. They're network quality because we have network quality facilities.
Great show today. Michael Miner, Russ Merrill, David Phillips. Next week, 2-time Super Bowl champion Chris Hoke. Let's wrap it up. It's Albert Einstein's birthday. He was born today, 1879.
Yep.
Let's wrap up with his thought, which I think has everything to do with what we've been talking about in the development of BYUtv Sports.
Yeah, because we certainly did this, all of us. It says, Albert Einstein, a person who never made a mistake never tried anything new.
And didn't you guys spend so much time trying new stuff? Made some mistakes, and look at the empire that we have. And
That's how you innovate.
The pressure
You have to
is
make mistakes.
unbelievable. It really is. And so it's easy to make a mistake.
Yeah.
But just don't let the dominoes fall.
No, but and Dave and I have said some dumb stuff on the air before. Not that we're going to admit, but we have.
I've always appreciated, and I'm going to say some dumb stuff today probably, but I've always appreciated Ken Venturi, the old CBS golf analyst's advice. He said, never follow a bad shot with another bad shot. Mm-hmm. If you make a bad shot, get it right and hit a good shot. And I think that's BYUtv. We tried some things and then we go, okay, so this can be better and this can be better. And then here we are and the two of you guys literally with BYUtv and its involvement in BYUtv Sports, and now it's handed off to the Big 12 in the biggest conference for the most money in the history of BYU. Says a lot about the pioneers, the ones who came in on the wagons and the two of you guys who came in and then brought us in with you. And here we are still today. It's crazy.
Well, our motto, you were there because we were there.
That's right.
Yeah. And you guys are here because we were here.
There you go.
On the Wise Guys.
We appreciate you guys coming on. Hey, next week, reminder that Chris Hoke's coming on. We'll give you a big spring ball update next week. We'll have another practice under our belts, another week of practice, and we'll give everybody a big spring ball update next week.
Podcast will be up tomorrow on all the places you can find podcasts. And again, we want you to go to YouTube and subscribe, Facebook, Twitch. It's all free. And ysguys.com is our home base where you can see this interview again. Danny Ainge, Ty Detmer, Max Hall, Marie Osmond, some of the fun ones we've had. It's nice to hang with you guys. Always is. And we'll do it again.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. Have a great week, everybody.
Good job.